NBCSN is shutting down. What does that mean for motorsports? Let's talk about it. Yo, what is up, everyone? My name is Jeff Krause, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Lines. Anything a little different to you? Yep, got a fade, and now I look like a baby. Nice. But enough about my face. Let's get into real business. Big story coming out from NBC Sports. It has been announced that their sports network, NBCSN, will shut down at year's end. Now, they did put out a statement regarding to the announcement and what is going to happen to all these sports programs on NBCSN. They said in a statement, quote, "At the conclusion of 2021, we have decided that the best strategic next step for our sports group and the entire company is to wind down NBCSN completely, with key elements of NBCSN's programming moving to USA Network and in some cases, Peacock for 2022 and beyond." Now, obviously, NBCSN has a lot of sports programming on their table, especially motorsports. It has been now known for a short time now that NBC is committed to becoming the new home for racing. That's why they got IMSA, they got INDYCAR, they got NASCAR, Supercross, they got almost every single big time motorsports event except for F1 and the NHRA. And with NBCSN shutting down, it is very curious as to what is going to happen to the motorsports landscape because of the fact that majority of the racing properties in America is on NBC. Now, NASCAR did put out a statement regarding the announcement, and they said, quote, "We are committed to ensuring that NASCAR and IMSA races are carried and distributed smartly to our broad and loyal fan base. NBC is a best-in-class partner, and we will work together to ensure continued high-quality delivery of our events now and in the future." Now, INDYCAR also put out a statement to this announcement. It was much shorter than NASCAR, but they commented, quote, "NBC Sports has always been a transparent partner, and we are aware of this upcoming strategy shift. Our 2021 broadcast schedule is not impacted by this decision. We plan to discuss our future broadcast arrangements in the late spring." Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Now we got the statements from both NASCAR, IMSA, and INDYCAR. What is going to happen? Let's first start off with NASCAR. Even though this it's a major change, actually NASCAR benefits, in my opinion, from this situation. Now remember, when this deal was first put in place, it was a huge sum of money. I think it was $2.4 billion. The 2014 to 2024 broadcasting rights were for Fox and NBC. Majority of it, at least for NBC's part, was paid so much for cable. Now, 2013, around late 2010, around that era, many networks were wondering, how do we get people on cable networks? Because a lot of people were starting to shift away. One thing you do that is with sports programming, and NASCAR, even though it was declining at this time, we have to accept that it was declining at that time. Still, it was really good from NBC's point to still put it on cable. That's why we saw majority of NASCAR races on cable instead of network television. 7 for NBC and 13 for NBCSN. And that deal runs into 2024. Now, the best part about the deal that NASCAR made is that all the races have to be either on cable or network television. So because of this announcement, NASCAR and the races that are supposed to be on NBCSN will move to the USA Network. Now, why is this great news for NASCAR? Because more people, at least more households, have the USA Network than they do for the NBCSN. Here's a short little graphic. NBCSN has 79.879 million compared to the USA Network's 90.4 million. In fact, 98% of all US households have cable have the USA Network. This is huge. You have a more than 10 million increase in households, which means more people are likely to have NASCAR in their TV. Again, 98%, that is a huge, huge increase compared to NBCSN, which had just under 80 million compared to USA Network, which has over 90 million. So they will start the migration. I don't know exactly if they're going to put all the NBCSN races on the USA Network, or let's say around maybe when the playoffs begin, around October, near the end of the year, will they start to make the transition? Again, we're not sure at the moment, but I think regardless, in my opinion, NASCAR got very lucky with this deal. Maybe back then it was weird, why are you putting so much races on cable? But now with this announcement, let's just say NASCAR, they got a pretty good deal from this situation. However, when we take a look at the other racing series, they don't have the same amount of good fortune to their name than NASCAR situation. Let's first start off with the racing series that, let's just be real, are screwed. IMSA and Supercross. So with IMSA, majority of their events are on NBCSN. And IMSA and Supercross, they made their deals a couple years ago, in fact. So it was a lot of cable as well as a lot of live streaming control for NBC Sports. A lot of the races were on either on NBCSN or the NBC Sports Gold. And again, same thing with Supercross. A lot of the events were on either on NBCSN or even on NBC Sports Gold. Because of this deal with NBCSN shutting down, all that programming is going to move on to Peacock, another paywall, which, let's be honest, if you have racing, if you're involved in racing with the Track Pass, I think, deal that they have, you're not going to have the Peacock network. And again, this just puts it in another paywall, which, again, we have no idea if the Gold Passes is going to transition to the Peacock Passes in which you don't have to pay. If you do have to pay, you're just going to limit your audience that much more. So IMSA and Supercross fans, they got kind of screwed from this deal. But now let's talk about INDYCAR. Now, INDYCAR fans, y'all are going to get screwed for at least a short time. Now, with this deal, when this deal was put in place in 2018, again, it was heavily live stream controlled by NBC. All practice, all qualifying sessions were on NBC Sports Gold through their INDYCAR Pass. And all the races that are on NBCSN will move over to Peacock. Which, let's say this, if you weren't a big time INDYCAR fan, let's say you were a casual fan like me, and you would watch the INDYCAR races on NBCSN, but you didn't want to pay for practice or qualifying. Now you're gonna have to pay for Peacock if you want to see the other 8 races of the INDYCAR schedule, which is just, I feel so bad for the hardcore INDYCAR fans that paid for the INDYCAR Gold Pass, and now it's gonna have to pay for Peacock, and especially to the fans that wasn't even paying regardless in the first place. They now have to pay if they want to see the other half of the season. But the reason why I say you're screwed for a short time is because, remember, the INDYCAR deal is done after 2021. At the moment right now, INDYCAR is already looking at other distributors, at other networks to broadcast the races. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive in a little more into that. And why I don't think INDYCAR is going to remain completely loyal to NBC. I don't think the next TV deal, you're going to see NBC the entire time throughout the season. What I think you could see is a deal set up with INDYCAR where they have control over the live streaming rights. So if they want to have practice air on YouTube or on Twitter and qualifying, or have certain camera angles on their social media platforms, they can do that. And I believe they might split the season, no longer have a one main network, and split it between NBC and another network. And I think it could come down to 2 networks. ESPN, they're not going to be involved in INDYCAR. I don't think, even though they did get the F1 rights, I don't think INDYCAR wants to get back into the relationship with ESPN. But I do believe it could come down between either CBS or Fox. Let's first talk about CBS Sports. Now, CBS Sports, they have had a long enriched history with motorsports, specifically with NASCAR, the Daytona 500 from 1979 until 2000. They've also dived deep into open wheel racing. In the early 1990s, they had, IndyCar Racing League back in those days. And in the mid 2000s, they had the Champ Car races. When ESPN wasn't airing those races, sometimes it would air on CBS. As well as sports car races, they've also held on CBS, on the big CBS. Well, now it was just announced. Remember, CBS Sports is going to air the Superstar Racing Experience with Tony Stewart, Haley Castroneves, Tony Kanong, a bunch of other racers coming together, race on short tracks and dirt races like IROC. And on top of that, they just recently inked a 3-year deal with Formula E to broadcast those races again on the big CBS. So think about it. CBS really wasn't that involved with motorsports after they lost the NASCAR race in 2000. All of a sudden, in a span of a year, they both got the Superstar Racing Experience and Formula E. Yeah, there might be 2 racing series that are not huge. Still, they got them. And I'm pretty sure there's a reason why they got them. I think CBS Sports might be dipping their toes back into the motorsports scene. I mean, think about it. CBS Sports, they don't have that much programming compared to maybe Fox or NBC. They have the NFL, they have the Masters, and they have March Madness. But remember, they're going to lose the rights to the SEC, which is Southeastern Football Conference. That goes to ESPN. So I won't be surprised if CBS Sports is looking for content to put on the big CBS. They do have some racing content, like they do have the off-road racing series, and sometimes they'll air on the CBS Sports Network. They'll have Grand Touring races or like sports car races up in Europe or in Asia. But again, there's very limited programming on big CBS on Sundays. IndyCar could possibly fill that spot. That's a real big possibility. Now, they will have to do some shifting because unlike NBC, with CBS, they have the NFL games take place during the afternoon, around September when the season begins. IndyCar, they still have a season running in September, so if CBS were to take over and split with NBC, you're going to have to shift the schedule just a little bit. But I think that might be a deal that IndyCar could be looking at. Split the networks and have every single race be on the main network and take control over the live streaming rights. That could be a real possibility. Or it could go over to Fox. Now, Fox, I understand with Fox and Motorsports, it's a tricky history. They got rid of probably 80% of their broadcasting rights involving motorsports. In fact, they only have 3 remaining: NASCAR, ARCA, and the NHRA, compared to maybe 10 4 or 5 years ago. And on top of that, they were a contender. They did post a bid, I believe, for the IndyCar deal in 2018. So even when Fox was dropping all their motorsports content, they still wanted IndyCar, which leads me to believe that maybe Fox just wants the big motorsports networks and no longer wants every motorsport series. I think they just want the big ones, and IndyCar, even though it's not the level of NASCAR, it's still a pretty big racing series and would help Fox and even FS1, their cable sports network. Yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens, especially with IndyCar, because again, they're in a pickle, but for a short time, because they can shop. They can, hey, we can ditch NBC either completely or maybe, lessen our loyalty just a little bit, maybe search for other networks like CBS, Fox, or they could even go back to ESPN and ABC. I mean, who knows what could happen at this point. IMSA and Supercross, they just inked a deal with NBC, so they are locked in. So for fans of those racing series are kind of screwed. NASCAR, they got the best deal out of this, bad situation. They're gonna have now their races put on a network that is available in more households. So good deal for NASCAR out of a bad situation, but again, it would be very interesting to see how the motorsports landscape is going to play out with their main distributor shutting down. But yeah, that's going to conclude this episode of MDK Inside the Lines. Guys, tell me what are your thoughts on this story in the comment section down below. And until next time, my name is Jett from MDK, and I'll see you guys next time.